Hi, I'm Aaron Stash with the Electric Home Show. We're here in the Sauganash neighborhood of Chicago with Wayne Beals, and he's the realtor on this home that we're going to check out, an all-electric home retrofit. I'm Aaron Stash. Welcome to the Electric Home Show. Wayne, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for featuring Jeff's home on the show. I think it's great to show an example of a 100-year-old neighborhood that has all electric homes in it. And so Jeff's house is a great example to cover.
Yeah, this is a unique opportunity. So Wayne, you are with the Beals Group, the Exit Strategy Realty.
That's right.
And you are a realtor all over Chicago. How long have you been a realtor?
So I've been working in the Chicagoland market about 23 years. And I've been focused for about 18 of those years on high performance buildings and really moving buildings to the next level.
Yeah. And Wayne is a bit of a celebrity here in Chicago real estate, particularly in green and energy efficient and environmentally friendly houses. He also works with an organization called Green Line Homes, which we may talk about a little bit, but we'll do another segment on Green Line for sure.
Absolutely.
But this house, so talk us through Jeff's process and kind of what he came to you with and said, hey, Wayne, can you find me this home?
Yeah. Jeff, was very sustainably minded. And so I love a sustainably minded home buyer. I love working with buyers, helping them identify homes that can be made all electric and can be made better for their family, better for their health, better for their comfort.
Right. And that's a really good example because not everybody can build a new house.
That's right.
The land may not be there to build a new house.
Absolutely.
But there's so much housing stock around, we don't have to settle for what we're getting. We can upgrade these systems.
That's right.
Just like we might upgrade our kitchen or our bathroom. But talk us through what upgrading to an all-electric house means.
Sure. So I think when you look at the house from the outside, there's not a lot of visible changes. I mean, when I look at this house today versus the day we looked at it during this home search, the biggest change that I see is the windows. Jeff installed much nicer windows on this house than what was here. What was here was the original windows from the 1960s, and they were charming, but very leaky, very energy inefficient, very uncomfortable. They had some lead paint on them. So, getting rid of those and replacing those with some nice new modern windows that are triple glazed. You see here from the outside, it gives it a little bit more of an updated look to this mid-century ranch, and then you end up with a house that's also just more comfortable and quieter on the inside.
Yeah, and we're here on a beautiful street, on a nice morning here, 100-year-old homes, bungalows, typical kind of Chicago neighborhood. And it really shows that, what you see may not be what you're getting on the inside. So Wayne, we were talking a little bit about, the birds are chirping, the lawnmowers are going, we've got some planes overhead. In terms of retrofitting or changing this house with insulation and air sealing, the things that we're hearing out here, are we going to hear them inside?
Yeah, so, certainly when Jeff was buying this house, it was perfectly obvious to all of us at the time that this is a flight path from O'Hare, right? Sauganash is in the direction of a runway. And so for the most part, if you don't have a ton of insulation in the house, a lot of that noise is going to work its way in. And so I always tell people, look, insulation is more than just thermal comfort. It's more than just energy savings. It really does improve the comfort of living in the home. And one of those things about comfort is really sound. And it's intangible in a lot of ways. But when you're living in the house, you certainly know it.
Yeah, so it's like air quality we don't see. Sound pollution or noise pollution we hear, but we don't think about because it's not just right there in front of us.
That's right. Yeah.
Great. What about electrification in terms of the panel? Is this using a 60 amp service or a 100 amp service? Or what did they
That's a great
do?
question. So originally the house had a 100 amp panel that was in here that was probably from the late 70s. So originally the house probably had a 60 amp panel.
Yeah.
Somebody about 20 years in upgraded that when they had a little more electrical need, when they put a new kitchen in. And then, that panel has served this house fine for 30, 40 years. And then we get to the point now where we're going to need a little bit more juice to power a heat pump, to move all our equipment to heat pumps, like a heat pump water heater, an induction range. And since we want to get rid of the gas utility on this house, the biggest challenge was how do we do that and not have to cause a major retrofit? So one of the first steps was a new electrical service panel. It's a 200 amp panel. It's a pretty surgical upgrade to the house. Took a few days. It's pretty non-invasive. You always have power the whole time, so it's an easy upgrade for people to do.
Okay.
But it allows us, after all the conservation measures that we're taking, to be able to power all that electrical equipment.
Do typical customers think about the energy efficiency of their house or what it's going to take to power that? Or
that's a fantastic question. So on one level, we all choose our house primarily by location. Like, we all kind of know where we want to live. And in Jeff's case, he wanted to live on the northwest side of the city. This is where his friends are. This is where his community is. So he wanted to live in this part of the town. And so we had a constraint. A lot of home buyers then look and say, okay, well, space is a big consideration. I need a certain number of bedrooms. I need a certain functional utility to the house. I need a certain number of bathrooms. And this house had the space and the size that Jeff needed. And then the other big constraint is how much work's involved to make it the house they want, right? I mean, if a house has an old kitchen and you cook a lot, maybe you want a new kitchen, right? If a house has an old bathroom and you really like nice bathrooms, you might want to do a rehab.
Yeah.
So buyers have different considerations that are sort of non-energy related, right? Although you can kind of make a case that some of these improvements could be made with an eye towards electrification, an eye towards energy efficiency. Like when you're renovating a kitchen, adding an induction range, when you're renovating a bathroom, you got to consider how to exhaust the moisture out of there. So there are some things that come to my attention when my consumers come to me and say, hey, I want to do this update. And I try to add some value to their transaction by helping them understand how they can make those improvements, but also be cognizant of how to improve the house's indoor air quality, how to improve the house's lifestyle and the way it lives.
Hi, I'm Aaron Stash. Thanks for watching the Electric Home Show. If you're a homeowner interested in a healthy, energy-efficient electric home, reach out to us at electrichomecompany.com to schedule your free virtual coffee today. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Aaron Stash with the Electric Home Show. We're here in the Sauganash neighborhood of Chicago with Wayne Beals, and he's the realtor on this all-electric home retrofit.
This house was a perfect candidate for Jeff, and I could talk a little bit about why we identified it that way.
Please.
So our attic here is unfinished, right? So it gives us a perfect space to add a lot of insulation without disrupting living space, right? So it's pretty easy to add a big woolly hat to this house, right? The windows were depreciated. So, when we're buying a house with old windows, you get a little bit of a better deal because for the most part, every buyer is gonna want newer windows.
Right.
This house had old windows, so it made it a great candidate from that perspective. The HVAC in this house was older and not well serviced. And so from that perspective, this house, we weren't paying for a brand new furnace. We weren't paying for a brand new air conditioner. The house had an old dryer. We're gonna replace that, right?
Okay.
So in this,
So it checked off all these boxes
That's
of,
right.
we know that we're going to upgrade it. We know that we want to go all electric.
That's right.
And so we don't necessarily want a home that's completely finished or
That's right.
renovated because they may not have done it to the standard that you ultimately want to have.
Now, it did have some challenges. So those were some pluses that were market challenges that allowed a little bit of negotiability and allowed us to price in some of the improvements we wanted to do. But the challenges are, it had perfectly finished floors. It had beautiful walls. So in a lot of ways, this house had to be retrofit without disturbing those things.
Okay, well, that's really interesting because a lot of the times if we think about, we're going to do a major renovation on this house, the first thing we do is we send in the gut team and they rip everything out.
Yeah.
They rip out the walls. We're going to,
I can't afford to do that.
But we didn't do that here, right?
Right.
So in this case,
so I think that one of the challenges we have with housing is everybody's got a budget, and Jeff came to me with a finite budget. These guys are going to retire here. They're going to age in place here. So there are certain things they wanted in the house that were long-term minded. They also didn't have a budget that they could pay off for the next 30 years, right? They didn't want to go into a lot of debt with this house.
Right.
So having a tight budget basically means you just have to be more strategic and you have to be more careful and you have to be very pragmatic about what you're trying to do.
Well, and it sounds like you need to build a plan, right? You need to know where you're going. You need a roadmap of here's what I can follow, because even as your budget, is finite or evolves over time, maybe you don't do everything all at once.
That's right.
And
we actually call it a roadmap. So whenever I work with a home buyer, whether they're interested in sustainability or not, they get who they get. And so I always give my buyers a roadmap of how to make improvements to their home so that they can understand, hey, you know, this home doesn't have any insulation in the attic, and you should really consider doing that. And you should, by the way, do that before you size your next heating and cooling system, because you don't want to overpay for that equipment if you don't have this, right?
So as a realtor, when clients come to you, are they coming to you for a more environmentally friendly home? Are they seeking you out? Are more folks wanting to do electrification? Or, hey, I found Wayne online and he specializes in this? Or are we running the gamut for everybody?
So the realtor doesn't pick the client picks the realtor, right? So I always say that people kind of search me out for what I'm good at, right? And so what I'm good at, you know, I grew up in Chicago. I know all the neighborhoods. I'm kind of in tune with those things, which a lot of realtors are. But really where I stand out a bit is in terms of helping people understand how their home is built, the things about it that maybe need some improvement. I hate when somebody does a home inspection and they find out all the things they should have seen during the showing, right? Because that's just kind of a waste of time for the seller. It's a waste of time for the buyer. It's a waste of time for the agents. It's a waste of money for the home inspector, right? So at the end of the day, we want people to have a successful experience in their house hunt. And if sustainability and comfort and energy efficiency and indoor air quality, if these things are important to people, right, they seek me out to help navigate themselves to a house that can meet those goals. In this case, Jeff was successful in getting this house, and it's a good candidate for what he wanted to do. The biggest thing with retrofitting houses is you have to sort of say, okay, well, what's important to me? What are the low-lying fruit? What are the easiest things I can do? Take those first, what are those first steps? And then where am I going with this, right? And just like you said, having a plan is really the critical path. Every house is going to have a different plan because every house is different. We can actually look up and down this block and see that there are similar houses, but maybe they have a different heating system. Maybe they were insulated differently. Maybe they have different windows. So as time goes on, houses get tinkered with, and we don't know the quality of that tinkering, or the depreciation of that tinkering.
If there was one piece of advice that you could give a home buyer, maybe things that they're not thinking about, what would that be?
Yeah, so I always tell my home buyers that what they should be thinking about is in terms of budget, right? Total cost of ownership is a critical factor in home buying. If you buy a beautiful old Victorian and you get a great deal on it, that's awesome. You might love that house. But there's some cost there that maybe you're not seeing. Maybe you're going to have to paint it a few times, right? Maybe you're going to have to fix some windows. Maybe your heating bills are going to be really high, right? Maybe it's going to be really tricky to insulate. So there are some commitments that come with a house, right? So as a home buyer, it's important to be practical about what you're capable of, what your budget's capable of, what your real needs are, so that when you do look at houses, you can end up with a house that you're going to want to stay in long term. But the worst decision a buyer can make is they buy a house and then they have to sell it, because that just costs money, right? Moving costs money. Selling a house costs money. So it's not an irrevocable situation like a divorce. You didn't marry the wrong person, but it's certainly one that comes with some financial hardship and just some traumatic hardship. I hate moving. So if I have a client that moves into a house and stays there 20 years, that's a success story.
But a really good piece of advice about the total cost of ownership for your house.
That's right.
I think about the Tom Hanks movie, The Money Pit. Probably familiar, right?
Totally.
It's like, gets this beautiful house.
I didn't think that was possible until I owned a house that sort of fit that description. So that literally was going to collapse in on itself one day after we were doing some work. And I was like, oh, this is just like that movie.
It's a great movie. Check it out. All right. Thanks so much, Wayne. Appreciate it.
Right on.
All right.
I'm Aaron Stash. Thanks for watching the Electric Home Show. Like and subscribe for more. If you're an industry professional interested in joining our network, reach out to us at electrichomecompany.com. Thanks for watching.